The Navy Minehunter project has been in trouble ever since the federal government decided to delay any further orders for 3 years. The stumbling block has been the German-made sonar, which has failed to meet our Navy's expectations. In 1989, the project was the subject of a parliamentary inquiry which found that government mismanagement had left Australia seriously exposed in military terms. The cost of the project to Australia was meant to be offset by selling the minehunters to overseas navies. But in a letter leaked from Canberra at the weekend, Carrington Slipway's Managing Director Don Laverick has told Defence Minister Beazley that his company will not be tendering for the supply of minehunters for the Singapore Navy. He states the company can no longer afford the heavy expenditure of promoting the minehunter to overseas clients without direct financial support. Funds for overseas marketing dried up this year. Further, the government, which owns the specialist facility, wants to charge Carrington Slipways up to $1.5 million a year in rent and a hefty commission on each sale. In the letter, Laverick explains how these charges steadily erode the price advantage we have over our overseas competitors. The high-tech air-conditioned shed will now lie idle until at least 1993, when the Defence Department is expected to rekindle the project. It will have to bear the huge re-establishing costs and retraining of skilled staff. Shadow Minister for Defence, Jim Carlton, says the closure is a disgrace and completely undermines assurances that a Labor government is committed to shipbuilding interests in the Newcastle area. John Church, NBN News.
As students and staff arrived at the college this morning, they were handed this letter, informing them the school will close in 2 weeks' time. A provisional liquidator was appointed by the courts last Wednesday to the Business Advancement Centre Limited, trading as the Newcastle Business College. Principal Pam Darcy says she was told of the closure by phone last night and knows little more than what is in the letter. She said that although enrolments are down, the decision to shut the school was a shock and totally unexpected. The 100 students at the school are also disbelieving. Most of them have paid up to $4,500 in fees and are concerned they won't see that money again.
I paid $2,500. Yeah.
Do you think you'll get any of that back?
If I'm lucky, I doubt it though. No. If they've gone bankrupt, then there'll be no way that even half of us will get our money back.
But it's the long term the students have to consider. Most of them are straight out of school and have no former training. And with university and the technical colleges already underway, the outlook is not good.
After this we have nothing. We've only had 2 weeks notice. We can't finish our course. We go for a year. Some of the girls are only half a year, but we've got nothing after this.
The Pacific Highway through West Gosford has been the bane of Central Coast motorists for years. The current 2 lanes have been outstripped by the area's increasing population, the roadway becoming the area's major gateway for tourists. This intersection was even named by NRMA members as one of the 20 worst in the state. Last year, reconstruction work began to convert the road to 4 lanes, and 3 weeks ago work was started on building a separate 2-lane carriageway linking the freeway to West Gosford. The 1.8 kilometre road will cost $10 million and will be separated from the existing highway by a 50-metre wide sandstone wall. Westbound traffic will use the present road and the new roadway will carry vehicles downhill. Ian Roberts from the Roads and Traffic Authority says the construction work is quite difficult.
It's not easy building a road down the side of a sandstone escarpment. The workers here have had a lot of problems with just the general blasting and having to look after the safety of people travelling on the existing highway. It's cramped conditions. It's just generally been not an easy job.
In some sections of the construction, crews are cutting down into 30 metres of sandstone and removing 300,000 cubic metres of fill. By June 1992, it's anticipated the new road will link with the West Gosford roadworks and join a bridge passing over the rail lines, diverting traffic away from the Gosford city centre. Meanwhile, police today flicked the switch for Operation Lights On. For the next week, police will stop cars at random, offering safe driving hints and asking drivers to turn on their headlights during daylight hours to make them more visible. Police will also be checking licences, random breath testing and checking for defects. Police cars too will travel with their lights on to promote community awareness. Most drivers today supported the operation. Do you think you'll drive with your headlights on now?
Yes, certainly I will, yes.
However, some didn't agree.
I don't know, I just feel the headlights are too glaring.
Darren Curtis for NBN News. The North Sydney Bears are one of the proudest clubs in the Sydney competition, but in recent years have been struggling to keep their juniors ranks bolstered. The Daily Telegraph today ran a back page story claiming the Bears had found the solution to their problems by amalgamating with the Central Coast Division. Secretary of the division, Ken Cosgrove, today denied all knowledge of the unification plans and claimed he has spoken to North's executives only to arrange a Winfield Cup game against the Bears and Gold Coast in Gosford. Mr Cosgrove says the area just isn't ready for a permanent Sydney League base.
Someone would have to find millions of dollars to develop a ground here to play on in the first place. I don't know that it would be of any great advantage to the Central Coast, certainly not to them, and I don't know if it would be of any great advantage to North Sydney. Whatever juniors we have produced here, and there are many, many good juniors come out of the Central Coast, they're available not only to North Sydney, but for every club in the Winfield competition. And this is proven by the fact that they come each year and take them.
But while the Central Coast administrators are adamant the present system works well, there's plenty of division amongst local league followers.
It'll be a very good thing and create a lot of interest up here in football, which needs a plug, a real big plug in the Central Coast.
I mean, it'd be good for the best players, but it wouldn't be much for some of the underlings.
Local league caller David Salmon says talk of amalgamation raises plenty of doubts.
I just question whether or not it's to the advantage of Central Coast Rugby League to join up with Norths. I wonder really whether we've got any more affinity with North Sydney than say we have with Newcastle.
Health Minister Peter Collins is honouring a promise to issue regular statistics after a controversy last year over shortfalls in intensive care facilities for premature babies.
I think really they reflect two things. One, we've had an increased number of ventilated neonatal cots within the state as of September, October last year, with the initiatives taken by the government at that time. The other thing that's happened is we've had a slight downturn from an exceptional peak in neonatal demand which occurred in October, November and finished really early December of last year.
Though the figures show the Martyrs Level 3 ventilator cots had only been full a couple of times in the past few months, today the ward was packed to full capacity.
Yes, our neonatal unit is full today. We have 7 ventilated cots available and all of them are in use at the moment. If anyone is delivered here in Newcastle in the next hour or so, then certainly we would have to consider sending them out if they need neonatal services.
But if this does happen, staff at the Martyr can link into a statewide computer, which in an instant shows just where there are vacant cots. And more facilities are being planned for Sydney's Nepean Hospital, though Dr Gill believes in the long term this may still not be enough.
There have been guesstimates made to suggest that the birth rate in New South Wales is going to increase over the next few years. These are really in the state of predictions only, of course, and we're obviously going to have to keep an eye on these over the coming years, and if the birth rate does increase dramatically, then there may well be a need for further neonatal services to match that in the years to come.
It's the 7th Moscow troop to be brought to Australia by the Edgeley organisation, but the first to visit regional centres in Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. The 14 acts and clowns are the pick of the 7,000 performers appearing with state-run Soviet circuses. The big attraction this time are the bears, and they're a circus on their own with their animal antics. So, how do our country audiences compare with those in rural cities at home?
Австралийская публика более эмоционально выражает свой восторг. Более эмоционально они свистит, хлопает и кричит.
Michael Edgeley and his productions aren't new to Newcastle, but it will be the first visit for his 25-year-old son Mark, who will oversee activities when the big top is pitched in the city.
Well, there's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders, but this is now my third tour. I've also toured with a couple of dance companies as well. But so far, it's, I've got a lot to live up to, and I've got a lot of pressure on my shoulders. But I think because I enjoy it and I love being there and working 12 or 14 hours a day, it makes it a lot easier.
As for the bears, well, they hope Newcastle and Hunter audiences will give their lick of approval to this Russian big top extravaganza.
The Dungog district has been traditionally a dairy farming heartland. In the 1960s, 250 farmers supplied the local factory, but by the 1990s, that number has been cut by 2/3. Hard economics has closed down the farms. Now the milk factory is following suit.
The main reason is that it's a high cost to maintain all these factories, and we're in a position now to try and eliminate some to reduce costs and improve the return to the farmer.
For the last 5 years, the factory has averaged more than 30 million litres of product, including cream and skim milk concentrate. But as owners Australian Cooperative Foods believe, a build-up of capabilities at Muswellbrook and Gloucester would be a more financial prospect. Today, workers prepared equipment for the transfer. The closure signals a rationalisation of the industry in the Hunter. Just 2 years ago, the Singleton factory was shut down.
The closing of the factory at Dungog is the end of an era and a very sad day as far as I'm concerned.
12 workers have accepted redundancy payments. At its peak in the 60s, the factory employed more than 50 people. Milk from the Dungog area will now be transferred by tanker to the Hexham factory. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Throsby Creek isn't Newcastle's best advertisement. Not a waterway to entice the visitor, it's borne the brunt of our throwaway lifestyle. For that reason, it and 4 other locations have been designated official clean-up sites for next month's Clean Up Newcastle Day. Coordination points will be at Throsby Creek, Glenrock State Recreation Area, Stockton Beach, Taro and Beresfield and Ironbark Creek. The clean-up was to have taken place last January, but even the best-laid plans were abandoned after the earthquake. Today, details of the delayed clean-up were announced by yachtsman Ian Kiernan, the man who's been the driving force behind the national push to rid our environment of garbage.
We all feel a bit threatened today. The ozone layer, the greenhouse effect, the rainforests in Asia and South America being chopped down, all of these things. But here is something that the average person, yourself, myself, can do on a day. Go out and help turn the problem around, lift our awareness and identify the scale of the problem.
I think most Novocastrians will be as surprised as I was to realise exactly how much rubbish is in Newcastle. I've done a survey of the area and we've picked out 23 sites like this one that desperately need cleaning.
They couldn't have chosen a more fitting venue to launch Newcastle's Clean-Up Day. The banks of Throsby Creek testify to the amount of junk which flows through our stormwater system. It's hard to envisage now, but organisers predict these mangroves will be squeaky clean by the afternoon of April 29.
I'll be here for the clean-up the actual day, and I'm going to come down late in the afternoon. I'll bet you this is sparkling.
An ambitious hope perhaps, but if enough volunteers show up on April 29, Throsby Creek may well indeed sparkle. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
Amy Stromier was 9 months old yesterday. She weighs only 4 kilograms. When she was 5 months old and in the Mater Hospital, she looked just like a newborn, needing physiotherapy to wean her from the embryonic position. It was thought then that she suffered from a rare congenital disease called ichthyotic erythroderma. The constant shedding of skin made her prone to infection and fluid loss. Doctors believed if she could only gain weight, she stood a good chance of survival. But even with specially enriched formula, Amy's weight was still dropping. Doctors suggested a gastrostomy, an operation to install a tube direct to her stomach.
This was her last chance for survival. We didn't know whether Amy could survive the anaesthetic. We didn't know what could happen to her, and that there is a lot of children around with a gastrostomy, but for Amy and the disease, as far as they know, she's the first baby ever with this disease to have the tube installed.
A skin biopsy then revealed she had the extremely rare Netherton syndrome, and in a few weeks' time Amy will be examined by an international team of dermatologists in a bid to help their research into the little-known condition. Since the operation, Amy appears to be thriving, lapping up the attention from big brother Matthew.
Well, now she's learning to play with rattles. The other day she learned how to hold a bottle for the first time, and she can sit up now where she couldn't before.
But frequent trips to hospital in Sydney are not only difficult, but dangerous for Amy. She needs to be in a temperature-controlled environment, and an air-conditioned car is a necessity her parents just cannot afford. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News.
The American visitor came in for attention from police after he was reported to be in a drunken state in the main street of Morisset at 6:30 yesterday morning. The 31-year-old was arrested and taken to Toronto Police Station and was to be transferred to the James Fletcher Hospital for treatment. However, before he could be moved, the man fell violently ill and was rushed by paramedics to Wallsend Hospital, where he later died. Attempts are being made to contact the man's relatives in Florida.
Racing will include the return of the solo bikes and sidecars, with 8-man finals making an appearance for the first time in 3 years. In addition, 2 state championships will be conducted, the compact speed car and stock car state titles. Defending compact champion Paul Stanbrook made history last year by winning the crown in his first Speedway season after making the switch from go-karts. He will have some formidable opposition from a classy field, which includes the former national champion Rod Bowen and 8 Queenslanders. Hunter Valley stock car drivers are set to dominate their state title, with the defending champ Steve Dickerson given little chance against the strong Hunter contingent. More than 170 weekend warriors will take to the track as modified rods, street stock saloons, litre sprinters and the quad racers take part in 4 hours of non-stop fundraising action.
Regulations for the National Basketball League state that all imported players from the United States need an international clearance to participate in the NBL. And it was panic stations at Falcons headquarters today as it was discovered that James Bullock had not been cleared by the American Basketball Association. It was a relieved coach who broke the good news this afternoon.
Yeah, we got it only about an hour or two ago. We received verification from the NBL office that he's all clear to play, so that's a bit of a load off everybody's mind.
The Falcons will host Eastside Melbourne in the opening game, and the team from Victoria have been in brilliant pre-season form, making the final of that competition. Cole will revert to an older game plan of run and gun to try to overrun the heavier east side.
Well, I've been a running coach all my life, you know. I mean, I've always wanted to run. I felt when we had Jerry Everett that we needed to change things up, because if we played the game the way I like to play it, I thought he'd have the ball for about 85% of the time. I couldn't afford to have everybody else watching Jerry do his thing, so I tried to take it out of his hands by a more disciplined team game. Now I'd like to revert back a little closer to what I believe in, and I think it's great for people. And the NCAA this week, all of the teams there are all of the top 4 scoring teams in the nation, so we'll try and score points.
It was one of the hardest decisions he has made in his short coaching career. Alan McMahon dropped his captain Slammin' Sam Stewart to the bench and promoted 5'8" Michael Hagan to the leadership position. With a win and a loss in their 2 games so far this year, the Knights will be looking for another of those legendary home ground matches where they seem to win at will. James Goulding comes into the team to provide a fast mobile forward who can distribute the ball, and Paul Harrigan will release the change from the front row to the number 11 position. For Michael Hagan, the added responsibility of captain shouldn't unduly affect his game.
I suppose it might be a little bit like the electric chair. I hope I'm not joining Sam next week on the reserves bench by any means, but just puts a little bit of pressure on you to perform. And I think, like you said, the whole team needs to lift their game, so we'll all be endeavouring to do that against West.
The Knights' opponents on Sunday at the International Sports Centre is a vastly different Western Suburbs outfit, and last week, even though they butchered a win against Norths, have enough talent to be a real threat.
Obviously they've bought pretty well in the off-season, and they are a stronger outfit, but I think, you know, provided we can contain the Hen Jackson Linders and Cameron Blairs of their side, and Danny Peacock for that matter, that'll go a long way towards winning the game.
In front of over 16,000 fans, it was always going to be tough, and West Brendan Tudor was in the thick of it. But the Knights had their own firepower in the form of Paul Harrigan and Mark Sargent. 25 minutes into the match, it was Mark Glanville who crossed for the Knights. Jeff Doyle went close straight after the break, but dropped the ball over the line, and then it was Michael Hagan, the new captain, who crossed for number 2. Ahead 12-0, Slammin' Sam made his appearance to thunderous applause, and it wasn't long after that his second row partner David Boyd scored try number 3. The backs were involved all day, and it was a well-deserved Tony Kemp try that stretched the lead to 28-0. The Knights weren't finished, and just before full-time, everyone's hero, Mark Sargent, made it 34-0.
After 597 kilometres in the saddle between Mount Gambier and Melbourne, even the City Rail Rattler must have seemed luxurious. The cyclists emerged to be greeted by a warm welcome and with 10,000 good reasons to smile.
They had about 3,500 before we went. We're anticipating there'll be quite a bit of money waiting for us now that we're back, because we had a number of people who committed themselves to find some more for us while we were away.
It took them a while to find their land legs, but the power peddlers were philosophical about their aches and pains.
How do you feel after 600 k's on the bike? Oh, a bit sore, but nevertheless it was a very, very interesting experience. Saw a lot of the country, met a lot of wonderful people.
Bum's all right, legs a bit tired, but other than that we feel great.
All I want to do though is go home and go to bed on a comfortable bed and have a good meal.
No prizes for guessing how they made the last leg of the long journey home.